Admiral Zorthax stands on the bridge of the Confederation flagship, his scaled skin reflecting the glow of Earth on the view screen. Another primitive world to add to our collection. He muses as his crew analyzes the unusual signals coming from the blue planet. The seven-limbed science officer, Kelvir, chirps with confusion. Admiral, these transmissions don't follow expected patterns for a pre-space civilization. They're broadcasting in multiple formats simultaneously. Zorthax flicks his primary eye membrane in dismissal. The Galactic Confederation has conquered 17 species across 3 spiral arms. Some fought back with primitive weapons, others with desperate diplomacy. All now serve as productive members of the Confederation hierarchy, their proper place in the cosmic order. Show me their world, he commands, and the view screen shifts to display Earth's continents, oceans, and scattered lights of civilization. Something about the distribution of those lights makes his secondary hearts flutter uncomfortably. Unlike other worlds where development clusters uniformly, Earth's habitation spreads across nearly every habitable, and many seemingly uninhabitable, regions. They build homes in deserts, tundras, mountains, and even floating on their oceans, reports Kelvir. Environmental adaptation beyond anything we've encountered in a pre-stellar species. The Admiral's interest grows when sensor readings detect artificial satellites, thousands of them, in various orbits, military or communication. Both, replies Kelvir. And stranger still, some appear deliberately destroyed. Orbital debris suggests they test weapons against their own satellites. When the Confederation finally reveals itself by positioning their ships in Earth's orbit, the response is nothing like their predictive models anticipated. Within hours, transmissions flood their communication systems, not in one planetary language but hundreds. They're sending mathematical sequences, cultural information, scientific data, historical records, and music, says the communications officer, her sensory frills turning pale blue with confusion. Sulara, the Tenop psychologist, studies the incoming data with growing fascination. Her 6 eyes blink in sequential patterns that indicate deep thought. They've been expecting visitors. Look at these protocols. They've prepared for this moment for generations. Preparing for what? Asks Zorthax. Conquest or communion? Both, Sulara replies softly. They've prepared messages of peace alongside what appear to be military contingencies. Their transmissions contain both welcoming ceremonies and tactical assessments of our vessels. The bridge falls silent as this information processes. Zorthax has conquered species that fought and species that surrendered, but never one that seemed to embrace both possibilities simultaneously. Their planetary governments are requesting diplomatic meetings, reports communications. 17 different nations have offered neutral meeting grounds. 17 nations. Zorthax's scales ripple with amusement. They haven't unified their world yet approach interstellar diplomacy. Charming primitives. Sulara's frills pulse with warning colors. Admiral, I wouldn't dismiss their fragmentation as primitive. Their history shows repeated attempts at world unification, all deliberately dismantled afterward. This isn't inability to unite. It's systematic preservation of division. As the Confederation initiates standard conquest protocols, their sensors detect subtle energy spikes across Earth and its lunar outposts. Defense systems activating, vessels changing orbital trajectories, communication patterns shifting to encrypted channels. They're preparing for conflict while extending diplomatic greetings, Kelvir observes. Admiral Zorthax feels a sensation he hasn't experienced in 12 conquest campaigns. Uncertainty. These humans aren't behaving like a species about to be conquered. They're behaving like predators assessing prey. Send the diplomatic team, he finally orders, and put the fleet on second-level alert status. As the commander of the most powerful force in this section of the galaxy issues these cautious orders, he doesn't realize that across Earth, humans are having similar conversations about him. Humanity has imagined this moment for centuries, in their literature, their science, their military planning, And unlike any species the Confederation has encountered before, they're ready. The conference room aboard the Confederation flagship gleams with polished blue-silver alloys, designed to impress primitive species with technological superiority. 8 humans from different nations enter the chamber, each moving with surprising confidence for beings about to be subjugated. Admiral Zorthax notes their physical diversity with curiosity. Different skin tones, heights, builds, yet all displaying the same alert posture and evaluating gaze. His species evolved from pack hunters. He recognizes predator assessment when he sees it. Welcome aboard the Galactic Confederation vessel Inevitable Dominion, Zorthax announces through translation devices. We are pleased you accepted our invitation. Captain Wei Chen, representing Earth's United Space Command, steps forward. We appreciate the opportunity for dialogue between our civilizations. He extends his right hand toward Admiral Zorthax, who stares at the gesture in confusion. It's called a handshake, explains Dr. Amara Okafor, the xenoanthropologist. Originally, it showed we weren't carrying weapons, though now it's a greeting. She demonstrates by shaking hands with her colleague. The Admiral's eye membranes narrow. These humans casually reference their violent past, as if discussing weather patterns. He extends a scaled appendage cautiously, and Captain Chen grasps it firmly. Your grip indicates confidence, observes Xilara, the xenopsychologist. In many species, physical contact with unknown entities triggers fear responses. Humans overcome fear through exposure and training, replies Colonel Ramirez, the military attaché. His scared face creases in what humans call a smile, but doesn't reach his constantly scanning eyes. We're quite adaptable. The delegation takes seats around the oval table as holographic displays activate, showing the Confederation's 17-member species and hundreds of subjugated worlds. The Galactic Confederation brings order and advancement to developing civilizations, begins Zorthax. We offer integration into our hierarchy with standard terms of surrender, resource quotas, technology restrictions, and governance oversight in exchange for protection and eventual technological elevation. Dr. Okafor leans forward. Surrender implies a conflict. We haven't engaged in hostilities. Yet you prepare for them, counters Xilara, gesturing to the military uniforms among the human delegation. We prepare for all possibilities, replies Captain Chen. Our history suggests caution when meeting new civilizations. Admiral Zorthax displays images of Confederation weaponry capable of orbital bombardment. To be clear, resistance would be futile. Your species would suffer needlessly. The humans exchange glances that contain not fear, but something the aliens' emotional sensors can't quite identify. It almost looks like anticipation. Colonel Ramirez studies the weapons display with professional interest. Impressive yield-to-mass ratio on your plasma cannons. Do they overheat after sustained fire? The question's precision startles the Admiral. How would you know to ask that? We've theorized similar weapons. Ramirez shrugs. All technology has limitations. Perhaps we could discuss more positive exchanges, suggests Dr. Okafor. Cultural sharing, scientific collaboration. After acceptance of Confederation authority, interrupts Zorthax. Your species must understand its place in the galactic hierarchy. Captain Chen's expression remains neutral, but his voice carries new weight. Admiral, humanity has spent thousands of years perfecting the art of adapting to superior forces. We've learned that apparent technological advantage doesn't guarantee victory. You speak of your conflicts with other humans. Xilara observes. Our technologies are beyond your comprehension. Perhaps, Chen acknowledges, but humans excel at comprehending new threats quickly. It's something we've been doing since our earliest ancestors faced predators with nothing but sharpened sticks. The diplomatic team proceeds with remarkable coordination, each member seamlessly supporting others' points, while extracting information about Confederation technology, biology, and psychology. They counter threats with reasonable alternatives, present cultural offerings alongside subtle reminders of Earth's united defense capabilities, and consistently demonstrate knowledge they shouldn't possess about interstellar warfare theories. As the meeting concludes, Admiral Zorthax feels increasing unease. In 17 conquest campaigns, he's never encountered a species that treated first contact as a chess match rather than a crisis. "We look forward to continued dialogue," Captain Chen says upon departing. "Our governments are eager to establish peaceful relations, but prepared for all outcomes." The implied threat isn't lost on the Admiral. After the humans leave, he turns to Xylara. Assessment. The xenopsychologist's frills have paled to ashen gray. "They're not afraid of us, Admiral, and that should terrify you." "Impossible," mutters Science Director Kivex, studying the readings for the third time. The amphibious alien's gill flaps pulse with agitation as holographic displays of Earth's defense systems float around the Situation Room. Their military technology shouldn't be this advanced. Admiral Zorthax circles the projections, four-fingered hand stroking his facial ridges in thought. "Explain the discrepancies." Kivex gestures to orbital scans of Earth's satellite network. Their public technological development suggests pre-FTL civilization with limited space presence, yet we're detecting weapons platforms with targeting systems specifically calibrated to track our hull compositions. They've hidden military tech among civilian infrastructure. Could they have reverse-engineered from other species? Asks Xylara, the xenopsychologist. "Impossible," Kivex replies. "We would have detected any previous contact. These adaptations appear anticipatory. The most disturbing evidence comes from Earth's communication networks. Intelligence analysts have been monitoring human military channels, expecting panicked responses to the Confederation's arrival. Instead, they've discovered measured, methodical preparations and eerily accurate assessments of alien capabilities. Listen to this transmission from their Pentagon facility," says communications specialist Trill, playing an intercepted audio file. A calm human voice resonates through the chamber. Confederation vessels show heat signatures consistent with plasma weapons. Targeting profiles updated accordingly. Countermeasure package Charlie is now primary defense protocol. "They've identified our weapon systems after mere observation," Admiral Zorthax notes with growing concern. "But how?" Kivex displays images of human military training facilities. They prepare for everything. These special forces units train in environments that would kill most Confederation species within minutes: scorching deserts, frozen wastelands, crushing ocean depths. Their equipment tests include electromagnetic pulse resistance, radiological hardening, and atmospheric adaptation. The images shift to show human soldiers in various training scenarios: underwater demolitions, Arctic warfare, desert infiltration, zero-gravity combat exercises. "Most concerning is their command structure," continues Kivex. "Targeted decapitation strikes, our standard first move against primitive species, would be ineffective. They've designed redundancies at every level. Take out their leadership, and new commanders simply step up." Xylara studies recordings of human military exercises, focusing on the soldiers' expressions. Their psychological profiles don't match evolutionary patterns for civilized species. During simulated crises, their neurological activity shows focus sharpening under pressure rather than diminishing. "Explain," demands Zorthax. "Most sentient species evolved intelligence as their primary survival mechanism, gradually reducing fight-or-flight responses." Xylara explains. "Humans appear to have enhanced both simultaneously. They think more clearly when afraid or threatened." Kivex adds, "And they train constantly for worst-case scenarios. Look at these war games. They simulate fighting enemies with superior technology, overwhelming numbers, or unconventional tactics." The Admiral watches footage of human soldiers crawling through mud under barbed wire, while explosions detonate nearby. They do this voluntarily. "They call it readiness," Xylara says, "and their historical records show they've been preparing for alien contact, hostile or otherwise, for centuries, both physically and psychologically. KVEX brings up another disturbing data point. We've analyzed their entertainment media. They'd been imagining conflicts with technologically superior species for generations, and in many scenarios, humans emerge victorious through adaptability, sacrifice, or unexpected strategies. Fiction isn't reality, dismisses Zorthax. But it shapes thinking, counters Silara. They've been mentally preparing their entire species for this encounter. The briefing concludes with KVEX's assessment. These aren't signs of a species that evolved to build civilization, he tells the Admiral. These are signs of a species that evolved to survive extinction events, repeatedly. They don't just adapt to threats, they anticipate and prepare for them in ways that seem almost prescient. Admiral Zorthax stares at the holographic display of Earth, its surface now marked with thousands of potential military assets his team has identified. Continue monitoring, but maintain diplomatic protocols, he orders finally. We need to understand what we're truly dealing with here. As the command staff disperses, Silara remains, studying human psychological profiles with growing fascination and alarm. A species that turns paranoia into preparation. She murmurs to herself, "How do you conquer someone who's been expecting you for their entire history?" Junior Commander Vrax paces the bridge of the scout vessel, swift subjugation, mandibles clicking with impatience. 3 solar cycles of observation have yielded nothing but diplomatic meetings and cautious standoffs. His carapace itches for action that would bring recognition from the Confederation High Command. The humans' Mars outpost is minimally defended, he tells his executive officer. A quick strike there would demonstrate our resolve without risking full-scale conflict. Admiral Zorthax ordered no engagement, the executive officer reminds him. Vrax's compound eyes flash with annoyance. The Admiral grows hesitant in his old age. The Confederation didn't expand by waiting for primitives to accept their place. He inputs command codes, overriding the mission parameters. We'll be heroes when we return with human prisoners and proof of their technological limitations. The sleek scout ship breaks formation, accelerating toward the Red Planet, where humans have established research stations and small colonies. Vrax selects the Olympus Mons settlement, isolated, limited defenses, perfect for a demonstration of Confederation power. Weapons charge, reports tactical. Target acquired. Fire. Vrax commands, mandibles spread in anticipation. The energy beams lance toward the Martian surface and vanish into nothingness 10 kilometers above the target. Deflection field detected, tactical reports with confusion. Unknown configuration. Before Vrax can process this information, proximity alarms shriek across the bridge. 6 small craft have emerged from concealed hangars beneath the Martian surface, rising with impossible acceleration. Evasive maneuvers. Vrax shouts, but the human vessels move with precision that suggests they've practiced this exact scenario countless times. The swift subjugation shudders as targeted EMP bursts disable its primary systems. 2 human ships lock onto the hull with magnetic grapples while the others maintain a defensive perimeter. "They're boarding us," reports security, voice trembling. How do they have compatible airlock technology? The answer becomes clear when the first breaching charges detonate. The humans haven't bothered with complex docking procedures. They'd simply cut through the hull with explosive charges precisely calibrated to penetrate without catastrophic decompression. Armed figures in sealed armor swarm through the breaches, moving with practiced efficiency in the ship's artificial gravity. Their weapons fire strange projectiles that splinter on impact, dispersing fast-acting sedatives calibrated to Confederation physiology. They knew exactly how to incapacitate us, realizes Vrax as darkness claims him. He awakens in the swift subjugation's own brig, surrounded by his unconscious crew. Through the barrier field, he sees humans and his executive officer conversing. Their translation devices render the human speech in harsh, clicking tones. "Your commander violated diplomatic protocols with an unprovoked attack," says a human female with commander insignia. This action constitutes an act of war. Junior Commander Vrax acted without authorization, the executive officer explains. The Confederation seeks peaceful resolution. The human's expression doesn't change. Your unauthorized commander will be returned to your fleet along with sensor data of what transpired. Consider this a professional courtesy between military personnel. When Vrax's ship limps back to the Confederation fleet, half its crew sedated and systems barely functional, Admiral Zorthax receives him in cold silence. The data package the humans provided plays on displays throughout the command center, detailed recordings of the brief, one-sided engagement. They were waiting for us, Vrax whispers through mandibles that won't stop trembling. They wanted us to attack. Across Earth, unified response protocols activate with seamless precision. Nations previously at odds with each other instantly form battle coalitions. Military systems hidden beneath the surface of seemingly civilian installations power up simultaneously. Most disturbing is the planet-wide psychological shift that Confederation sensors detect, brain activity patterns showing not fear or panic, but a synchronized transition to what synapsepsychologist Lara identifies as battle mind, a state previously documented only in apex predator species during coordinated hunts. We've made a grave error, she reports urgently to the Galactic Council. We haven't discovered a civilization. We've disturbed a hive of evolutionary perfect soldiers who have been fighting each other for so long they've been waiting for an external enemy. Admiral Zorthax stands before the Confederation War Council, his scaled skin dulled with stress. The holographic displays show Earth's orbital defenses activating, satellites reconfiguring from communication to military functions, stealth platforms emerging from hidden lunar bases. The humans demand reparations for the Mars attack, he informs the assembled commanders. They've set a deadline for our response. High General Kavoth, supreme military authority of the Confederation, dismisses this with a wave of his armored claw. We do not negotiate with primitives. Prepare a disciplinary action to remind them of their place. With respect, General, cautions Zorthax, our intelligence suggests. Your excessive caution is noted, Admiral, interrupts Kavoth. The Council has decided. 3 battle groups will target their lunar installations as demonstration of our resolve. Minimal casualties, maximum impact. Lara attempts to interject. The psychological profiles indicate humans respond differently to threats then. Enough, booms Kavoth. 17 species have joined our Confederation, willingly or otherwise. These humans will be no different. As the massive Confederation vessels move into attack formation, targeting systems lock onto the lunar bases. Admiral Zorthax observes from the command ship, uneasy despite their overwhelming firepower. Weapons charge, reports tactical. Firing solutions plotted. Execute disciplinary action, orders Kavoth from his flagship. Brilliant energy beams lance toward the lunar surface, only to scatter against shield configurations that shimmer into visibility upon impact. The defensive systems protecting the human bases display energy signatures unlike anything in Confederation records. Shield configurations adapting to our weapons, reports tactical in disbelief. They're learning with each impact. Before the Confederation fleet can recalibrate, lunar defense platforms unleash precisely targeted counterattacks. Not the wild, desperate barrage expected from a primitive species, but surgical strikes against propulsion systems, weapons arrays, and communication nodes. They know our ship designs, realizes Zorthax with dawning horror. They're targeting specific vulnerabilities. The precision speaks of extensive preparation that should have been impossible without prior knowledge of Confederation technology. More unsettling still are the small craft launching from Earth and the Moon. Human vessels accelerating toward the Confederation fleet on intercept trajectories that tactical systems classify as 96% probability of self-destruction. They're on suicide runs, warns the tactical officer. But the humans aren't sacrificing themselves. They're executing high-risk, high-reward boarding actions. Protected by advanced shielding, they penetrate the defenses of 3 Confederation cruisers. Boarding teams have breached decks 7 through 12, reports internal security. They're moving with precision through our ships, straight toward critical systems. Shipboard cameras capture the human soldiers in sealed armor moving with practiced efficiency, their tactics showing intimate knowledge of Confederation vessel layouts. They ignore opportunities to capture prisoners or technology, focusing solely on disabling ships with minimal casualties. They're not here to destroy or conquer, realizes Lara, watching the footage. This is a demonstration. When the brief engagement ends, 3 Confederation cruisers drift powerless, their crews mostly stunned rather than killed, while the human vessels retreat to defensive positions. During the tactical retreat, intelligence officers intercept human communications that chill the Admiral's blood. The human commanders aren't celebrating their victory or mourning losses. They're discussing the Confederation's tactics with the cool professionalism of instructors critiquing student performance. Strike Group 7. Adjust your approach vectors next time, says one voice. You telegraphed your intentions at the deployment point. Noted, Command, responds another. Their shield harmonics were exactly as our simulations predicted. The theoretical models worked perfectly. Theoretical models, whispers Zorthax. How could they have modeled our technology? As damage reports flood in, the Admiral makes a decision. Stand down all attack forces. He orders against Kavoth's protests, and send me everything we have on human history and warfare development. There's something fundamental we're missing about this species. Watching the disciplined retreat of human forces, Lara observes, they could have destroyed those ships. Admiral, they chose not to. That's what concerns me most, Zorthax replies. They're not fighting to survive. They're fighting to communicate. The Confederation War Council sits in stunned silence as the historical analysis team presents their findings. The lead analyst, a 6-limbed Arctian named Telix, gestures to timeline projections spanning thousands of Earth years. Humans haven't just practiced warfare, she explains, her translator struggling with the concept. They've elevated it to an art form across countless generations, developing and refining techniques that exploit every possible advantage. Admiral Zorthax leans forward. Explain the anomalies in their technological development. Telix brings up a comparative chart. Most species follow predictable development patterns: agricultural revolution, industrial age, information era, then space exploration. Humans compressed these phases and experienced explosive technological growth during periods of conflict. The display shows Earth's technological progression with dramatic spikes corresponding to what humans called world wars and Cold War. They advanced more in the 5 years of their Second World War than in the previous century, continues Telix. Nuclear energy, radar, computing, jet propulsion, rocketry, all developed under pressure of existential threat. This pattern repeats throughout their history, adds another analyst. Their greatest innovations emerged from competition, either against nature or each other. Lara, studying brain scan comparisons, interjects, they don't just adapt to warfare, they're neurologically rewired by it. Look at these activation patterns in human soldiers versus civilian populations. The scans display striking differences. Under threat conditions, human brains show increased activity in both problem-solving centers and coordination regions simultaneously. They become more creative and more cohesive when threatened. Admiral Zorthax watches footage of ancient human battles alongside modern conflicts, seeing the same tactical patterns repeated across millennia with increasing sophistication. They've weaponized their environment, notes Telix, showing humans fighting in deserts, jungles, mountains, and Arctic conditions. They've weaponized their bodies, she continues, displaying training regimens that push human physiology to extremes. They've even weaponized their deaths. Explain, demands High General Kavoth, speaking for the first time since the briefing began. Kamikaze attacks, suicide bombers, last stands against overwhelming odds. Humans have consistently demonstrated willingness to sacrifice themselves if it achieves tactical advantages, explains Telex. But more disturbing is how they memorialize these sacrifices, creating cultural narratives that inspire future generations to similar actions. The Council watches in silence as the analysis team displays human war memorials, ceremonies honoring fallen soldiers, and cultural productions dramatizing sacrifice in battle. They remember their wars, whispers an elder council member, not as trauma to avoid, but as heritage to honor. Silara brings up another disturbing dataset. Their information warfare capabilities exceed anything we predicted. Their history shows mastery of propaganda, psychological operations, and deception tactics. During their Cold War, 2 human power blocks fought primarily through information manipulation and proxy conflicts, developing techniques for undermining enemy resolve without direct engagement. Most concerning, continues Telex, is how deeply warfare has shaped their development pathway. Their political systems emerged from power struggles. Their economic models developed through resource competition. Their ethical frameworks address concepts like just war that have no equivalent in Confederation philosophy. Admiral Zorthak studies projections of human military capabilities based on their rapid adaptation during the recent skirmishes. How could they have prepared so specifically for our technology? They didn't, replies Telex. Not exactly. They prepared for everything. Their strategic thinking considers countless scenarios against unknown adversaries. Their fiction explores thousands of potential first contact situations, including hostile ones where they face technologically superior invaders. By the void, whispers the Admiral, we've spent generations evolving away from violence while they've been perfecting it. High General Kavoth's expression darkens. You suggest we cannot defeat these humans. Telex chooses her words carefully. Historical data suggests that species who evolved under constant threat conditions develop unique resistance to conquest. Humans haven't merely survived extinction-level threats. They've emerged stronger from each one. Their history isn't a record of civilization building. It's a 4-billion-year story of unbroken survival against all odds. The Galactic Council's emergency session stretches into its 3rd day. Elder representatives from all 17 Confederation species occupy the tiered chamber, their attention fixed on the central holographic display, showing simulations of potential human Confederation conflict scenarios. Scenario 37, announces the simulation director. Overwhelming force applied to Earth's major population centers. Minimal occupation forces, maximum psychological impact. The projection displays Confederation battleships in low Earth orbit, devastating major cities with precision strikes. Population centers glow red, then black as simulated destruction spreads. Projected human military resistance neutralized within 14 standard cycles, continues the director. Civilian casualties estimated at 32% of population. Acceptable losses for integration, rumbles High General Kavoth. The survivors would recognize our dominance. Silara rises from her seat, frills flashing warning colors. The simulation is incomplete. Project forward 200 cycles. The timeline accelerates. Red dots appear across Confederation space. Human insurgent attacks spreading like a virus through supposedly pacified systems. Supply routes disrupted. Colonial outposts sabotage. Confederation military resources stretch thin, responding to simultaneous threats across multiple sectors. This assumes surviving humans would operate as previous conquered species, Silara explains. But their concept of revenge has no equivalent in our psychology. Their historical records show conflicts continuing for generations after decisive defeats. The Council murmurs with concern as she displays cultural analyses from Earth's history. The Irish resistance against British rule lasted centuries. Vietnamese guerrillas defeated technologically superior American forces through asymmetric tactics. Afghanistan has repelled 3 separate global powers despite overwhelming force disparities. These are conflicts between human factions, dismisses Kavoth. Precisely. Counters Xelara. Humans don't just fight to win. They fight to remember. They've spent millennia perfecting techniques against opponents who think exactly like they do. They understand their own weaknesses better than we ever could. Admiral Zorthax adds, even if we destroy their homeworld entirely, human colonies on Mars and beyond would preserve their resistance culture. Their history glorifies lost causes and last stands. The evidence becomes increasingly alarming as the analysis team presents more findings. Humanity's fractured political systems, initially seen as a weakness, create countless redundancies that make them impossible to fully subjugate. Their tendency to romanticize resistance means defeated humans fight more determinedly than victorious ones. Most concerning, Xelara continues, statistical analysis shows humans fight more effectively against technologically superior opponents. They expect the challenge and rise to it with alarming creativity. The simulation's conclusion appears on every council member's private display. A conventional victory against Earth would require such devastating force that it would destabilize the entire Confederation, while anything less would result in endless, evolving human resistance. We've conquered predator species before, says a council member from the Arthropoid delegation. But never one that hunts ideas, replies Xelara. Humans conceptualize abstractions, freedom, vengeance, legacy, then fight for them more ferociously than for physical survival. The statistical projections show an unsettling truth. Complete human extermination would require genocide on a scale the Confederation has never practiced, violating their own founding principles. Anything less guarantees eternal conflict. The diplomatic team reports humans are still open to alliance negotiations, notes Zorthax. They've made no aggressive moves since the defensive action against our vessels. They're waiting, Kavoth growls, assessing our capabilities. Yes, agrees Xelara unexpectedly, but not for the reason you believe. Their diplomatic communications showed genuine interest in peaceful exchange, alongside unmistakable warning signals. They prefer cooperation but are psychologically prepared for conflict in ways we cannot match. Elder Mizix, the Council's most ancient member, speaks for the first time. In 7,000 cycles of Confederation expansion, we have never retreated from a pre-FTL civilization. Are we truly considering this unprecedented action? Xelara activates one final simulation. Human diaspora spreading outward from their solar system over centuries, their warlike innovation accelerating as they encounter new challenges. The question, she says quietly, is not whether we can defeat humans today. The question is whether we want humans as vengeful enemies forever or potential allies with capabilities we've never imagined. A new Confederation delegation approaches Earth orbit, this time with a dramatically different fleet configuration. No weapons charge, no battle formations, just diplomatic vessels displaying universal peace symbols, flanked by an honor guard rather than warships. In the United Nations Assembly Hall, representatives from every Earth nation gather to receive the alien envoys. Captain Wei Chen, now promoted to Admiral following his successful handling of First Contact, stands with the diplomatic corps as the Confederation representatives enter. Admiral Zorthax leads the delegation personally, his ceremonial robes replacing battle armor. The tension in the room is palpable. The Mars incident and subsequent lunar engagement fresh in everyone's minds. People of Earth, begins Zorthax, his translator now perfectly calibrated to human speech patterns. The Galactic Confederation extends formal recognition of human sovereignty and offers equal alliance status within our interstellar community. Murmurs of surprise ripple through the assembly. This is not the subjugation terms previously demanded, but an offer typically reserved for species with centuries of space development. Furthermore, continues Zorthax, we propose extensive cultural exchange programs, technological sharing initiatives, and mutual defense treaties that respect Earth's independent status. The terms presented are surprisingly favorable: trade routes, scientific collaboration, and non-aggression pacts with minimal restrictions on human expansion. no resource quotas, no governance oversight, no technology limitations. As celebrations erupt across Earth at news of the successful negotiation, few humans notice the careful wording in the Confederation documents, references to special relationship status, and unique developmental pathway recognition. Later, aboard the Confederation diplomatic vessel, Silara reviews the classified designation now attached to humanity in secure databases: Apex Threat Species, Maximum Containment Protocol. The Council has authorized formation of a new division. Admiral Zorthax informs her, dedicated solely to monitoring and understanding humans. You will lead it. Containment through alliance, Silara observes. Elegant solution. The Admiral's scales shift in the pattern denoting grim amusement. Better to have them fighting alongside us than against us. Their martial tendencies can be channeled toward mutual threats. Behind closed doors, the Confederation establishes extensive research initiatives, analyzing human psychology, warfare techniques, and adaptability. Specialists study everything from human military training to their entertainment, searching for insights into their unique evolutionary path. As cultural exchanges begin, other Confederation species observe humans with a mixture of fascination and horror. These strange bipeds who simulate warfare for entertainment, who voluntarily engage in physically dangerous activities for pleasure, whose cultural heroes are often those who died in battle. Most unsettling is humanity's reaction to learning about the greater galaxy. Instead of being humbled by vast civilizations spanning dozens of star systems, they seem invigorated. Their scientific teams immediately begin collaborative projects in areas the Confederation considers too dangerous to explore. Their military strategists request joint training exercises in the most hazardous environments. They're already planning expeditions to the Cygnus Rift, reports a monitoring officer, a region we've avoided for centuries due to gravitational instabilities. Admiral Zorthax reviews footage of human children playing war games in a park near the new Confederation embassy on Earth. Their mock battles display sophisticated tactical understanding that would impress military academies on many Confederation worlds. They're born to this, he tells the Council in his final report before transferring to head the Human Engagement Office. We've avoided a war we might have eventually lost, but gained allies whose capabilities we've only begun to understand. Across the Confederation, military academies quietly introduce new training programs based on human warfare concepts. Cultural specialists study human resilience techniques. 17 species who believe themselves the pinnacle of evolution begin preparing for a future where humans will inevitably take their place among the stars. We didn't avoid a war, Zorthax tells Silara as they watch Earth growing smaller on their view screen, returning to Confederation space. We've simply postponed it and made ourselves useful to them until they're ready. Our best hope is that they consider us interesting enough to keep around when that day comes.